Hey everyone, thanks for joining. We've just received the confirmation that Global is definitely getting a Dai event, so I thought it is now same time to make a video for a new Dai unit and deep dive analysis of each unit. I have tried to cover 3 units, Dai, Pop and MAM in this video, but each of these units are quite unique and it's going to be too long, so I decided to separate them out. Okay, so let's go straight to the video. Now, disclaimer that this is my prediction based on JP version of DQ TACT, so it's not guaranteed what we'll be getting, so be cautioned about that. Timeline wise, this is a part 2 of Dai event, and then we'll be getting 3 units as I said, follows on from the Blossom units that we've seen in my previous video. But today I'll talk about Dragon Knight Dai. So Dragon Knight Dai, I wanted to compare his stats against Anniversary Heroes because they are very similar as you see in the chart. Higher on HP, lower on attack, lower on defense, and lower move. Now attacks and move point of view, it's going to be non-existent if you see his kit, so I'll explain that later. In terms of his weaknesses, he has the same elemental weakness as Erdrick, so Frizz and Zam. He's weak to sleep and bind, very similar to Erdrick. So very similar to two heroes, but more similar to Erdrick if you consider weaknesses. Now, let's look at his kit. So first of all, he's an extremely versatile physical attacker with a non-elemental attack, which reduces physical resistance. Now, so people who struggle with Monty's low chance on a physical resistance down, this one is a good news because he reduces by 60% chance, which is pretty high. He also has a whoosh sure hit attack, which is, for units like Mystical Juliante, this is a real one you need to watch out for. And then thirdly, he has a 3 zap attack. You heard me right, 3 zap attacks. They are all advanced thrash, but all reduces zap resistance, so which is really good as well. So 2 debuffs in one unit, both with 60% chance. Fantastic. The 3 unit skills goes like this. So the first one comes with Advanced Thrash A, which stands for Arrow. So Advanced Thrash Arrow is a range 1 to 4. It's a long range. B stands for Break, and it's an AoE 3 straight line damage. It also allows him to move 4 squares. Now the Advanced Thrash X, which stands for Cross, which is a combination of an AoE at the square, a certain square, doing a double damage. And all of these doing 60% chance of zap resistance and each hit. So in case of Cross, that's a 2 chances of 60%, most likely reducing zap resistance. So also he has many buffs that is quite convoluted, I must say, and works around HP threshold. I'll cover more about this in the second slide, the following slide, but one thing to remember, he gets a move +1 at max HP, but when HP falls below 50%, his damage mitigations, damage increase, and gets increased, and also status as a status immunity. He also has a healing when he falls below 30% of HP. So a bit complicated, but I'll take you through the maths in the next slide. And then third one is more buffs. So he gets an attack and defense buff on odd turns, similar to Erdrick, but be cautioned that this has no agility buffs. And this is only available at Awakening 3, so if you want the full power, he needs to be Awakening 3. Also has an actionable ability which reduces damage by 50% and then damage increase by 50%. Now, this takes a turn and it's actually exactly the same as the buffs that he gets below 50% HP. So maybe he might be using on a turn 1, but it's not very relevant in his kit, I don't think. So let's move on to the math I was talking about with around HP. So how's this HP dependent buffs work? So the first set of buffs at Awakening 1 is in the left hand corner box. He gets a 20% mitigations and then damage uplift to 20% and move +1. So it's essential skill, so you need to really awaken in 1. But moreover, it's procs if it's above 20% HP, so most of the times. But furthermore, when his HP falls below 50%, then he gets another further 50% mitigations over above 20%. and then also damage uplift of 50%, as well as the status immunity. So, really significant upgrade in all areas when HP falls below 50%. So as you can see from the chart, to take advantage of both move +1 and status immunity, you want to be keeping his HP between 20% and 50%. That's the best way to use Dai. So that's the first slide. And then you might be thinking, okay, that's great, but if HP falls below 20%, then that's a bad news, because then he won't be able to move as fast. Well, move 3 squares, only move 2 squares. That's which isn't great. And that's true, but there is another buff that allows him to compensate for that. So when say for example in the red arrow on the right, if enemy does damage that's takes Dai's HP to below 20% threshold, then there's another passive that triggers that allows him to recover 20% HP up to 3 times. Now this procs when HP falls below 30%. So what that means is it's set in a clever way that if HP falls below 30%, recovering only 20%, making sure that it stays below 50%. So let me give you an example. So Dai takes a damage, HP falls to say 25%, say. Then it will only take up 20% HP, so that will cover the 45% threshold. So it's between 20 and 50%. Let's say HP falls really low and to 10%, then his HP will recover by 20%, making it 30%. So again, keeping him in that 25-50 HP range. So really nicely set out, and it works very synergizes with the previous buffs. Let's look at his damage. So I picked up 3 of his skills and compared it with the hero Soro and Eldrick. So Eternal Sword weaker than Eldrick. Zenessian Sword weaker than Zenessian Sword on the non-elemental. On a zap attack, the coup is only marginally stronger than Erdrick. Now, you might be thinking, okay, so yeah, basically this is because his attack is lower, he's inferior to Erdrick and Solo. But hang on there a minute. So at the bottom, as I said, this, by the way, assumes turn 3 damage and Dai is awakening 3, but Dai gets a 50% damage uplift below 50% HP. And at least 20% if his HP is above 50%. In a very similar manner to Solo, that he gets 30% uplift below at 50% HP. But Dai is basically better in these buffs. So anything that you see on the screen, you need to multiply by 50% or at least 20%. And then what you will see is that his damage is significantly outperforms both Erdrick and Solo. On the coup especially, his damage is absolutely bonkers with a 50% uplift. I think it's stronger than Solo's coup actually, or on the same level. So generally speaking, he's a better DPS than both of these, and a versatile because he has a multi-element as well as non-elemental. One thing to note though, he doesn't have an AoE attack like Phoenix or Giga Sword. So that's one downside I would say for Dai. Let's look at his strength and weaknesses in a summary. I've already covered all of this, but let's look at one by one. He's an anniversary unit class stats and with a multi-element DPS. And then he also has much hits harder than Solo and Erdrick. 60% chance of physical resistance down and zap resistance down is huge, especially in PvE, highlighted in blue. Mitigation 20% to 50%, excellent. Damage buff of 20%, 50%, also excellent. And then odd turns attack defense uplift is also great. Now, highlighted at bottom is that this is, and I consider Solo, Erdrick, and Dai to be PvE trio expedite, which allows us to expedite PvE clears like Blossom Doors, as you'll see, making it incredibly clears incredibly shorter and less RNG dependent. So really good unit for PvE. But and then up to here, I only said a lot of the things I said are all good things about Dai. But let's look at his weaknesses. So the big one, the first one is in yellow, is weak to sleep. He's weak to sleep. That's huge downside because sleep is very common state summon ability that's around. He also has no agility buff like others, so what that means is he's just too slow. He can be put to sleep very quickly. He's also weak to bind. And then talking about the immunity is fantastic because it's permanent once its HP is below 50%, but you need to let his HP fall below 50%. That's not sometimes not easy, right? And then also he has a 50% buff only at below HP below 50. So in PvE this is non-issue because you can control that more. But in RTA, nobody's going to hit Dai knowing that it's going to power up and as an immunity below 50%. What it will do is put it to sleep, leave him there, and take everything out, and then come back to Dai once he's finished with the rest of the team. So I think very awkward to use in an RTA. Also in the brackets, I put a smallish weakness, so it can be put Frigid Wave or Zenithian Sword to take out these immunity buffs, put to sleep before his next turn, and then he will be put to sleep also. But that's a kind of in a smaller note because it's not all teams have solo or Zoma, right? So that's what that's the weakness is. So my first impression of Dragon Knight, how useful should you pull? But do let me know. These are just my thinking, and I'm keen to know what everybody thinks as well. So my early verdict, as I said, Dai is really good as a PV unit and he's very does well at Awakening 1. But at PvP he isn't really great because of that sleep resistance. So let's try to summarize all of that what I said. So more damage than Eldritch Sorrow, which is pretty impressive. Both debuffs, Zap and Physic, has a 6% proc chance, fantastic for PvE. But when it comes to PvP stuff, he lacks the wide AoE attacks like Eldritch and Solo, lacks the agility buff that you really need for a slow unit like this. An awkward way the status immunity works, as well as the 50% buff, and weak to sleep and bind being some of the most common status ailment. So in summary, I think he's essential level for PvE. Awakening 3, he's an absolute powerhouse with the buffs. But in PvP, could be shut down easily with a sleep turn 1 and taken out slowly once that the opponents dealt with the rest of the team. So not really great option for PvP in my opinion. However, I think if you work around his a bit weaknesses, there are probably ways to do it. But he's not your Solo, he's not your Erdrick, kind of easy, no brainer, including the team kind of strong, because he can be taken out. And that's a really costly, when he gets taken out with a 65 wave and they're taken out by sleep. It's a real downside. Okay, so that is the video for Dragon Knight Dai. Hopefully you found this useful. Please do like and subscribe if you found it useful. Thank you.